The salad plate hit my cheek before I even saw it coming, and the first thing I tasted was blood. Not a lot, just enough to sting, just enough to remind me I was still standing in the middle of a room that didn't know who I was. The room went silent, then burst into muffled gasps and uneasy laughter. Troy Beckett, my stepfather, lowered his glass, wobbling slightly, eyes glassy from too much Cabernet and too much ego. "Oops," he slurred, waving a sloppy hand toward the broken dish at my feet. "Better get someone to clean that up." Someone. He knew my name. He always had. But here, surrounded by white tablecloths, crystal flutes, and 50 of their closest, most judgmental friends, I was just the help. I pressed the napkin to my cheek. Warm, sticky. I could already feel the bruise forming. Then came Lydia, my mother, without missing a beat, lifting her wine as if nothing had happened. "Avery, dear," she said, voice like a blade in velvet. "Could you bring more lemon water for the table? Maddie prefers hers with a slice." Maddie, her daughter, my stepsister. 25, flawless in a silver dress that shimmered like it belonged in a music video. Diamond on her finger, fake sympathy on her face. She giggled, leaned into her fiancé, and whispered something I didn't catch. But he did. He laughed too. I didn't answer. I didn't move. My left hand reached for the edge of the name tag clipped to my blazer. The same one I wore the day I got promoted. Same lapel, same stitching, same initials etched in gold. A. Quinn, managing partner. But nobody here had read it. Or maybe they had, and didn't care. The hum of the string quartet picked up again. Someone clinked a fork against a glass. The party resumed as if blood on the floor was part of the decor. I turned slowly, walked toward the bar. Not to fetch lemon water, not to play the role they'd assigned me. Behind the counter, Miguel raised an eyebrow. "You okay?" I nodded once. Quiet, deliberate. He handed me a towel without asking. He'd seen enough. I caught my reflection in the mirrored shelf. Blood along the jaw, eyes clear, smile gone. It wasn't humiliation I felt, not anymore. It was calculation. Because in 15 seconds, the woman who hired me would walk through the double doors with a leather folder under one arm, and a reckoning in her stride. They thought I was just the waitress. They forgot who owned the damn building. And then Tessa walked in, carrying the folder they should have never underestimated. The first thing I ever owned was a phone I paid for. The last time I held it, it was in Maddie's hand. I was 14, and I had worked every weekend since July. Dog walking, babysitting, helping old Mr. Pennington unload groceries while he told stories no one else wanted to hear. $10 here, 5 there, quarters stacked in an envelope I hid behind a loose floorboard. I counted every coin before I walked into that store. $129.99 plus tax. It wasn't fancy, didn't even have a front camera. But it was mine. For one afternoon, I felt untouchable. Setting it up in my room, fingers trembling like I'd stolen something instead of earned it. No one knew. I didn't tell anyone, but Maddie saw it. She burst in without knocking as usual. 9 years old and entitled like she owned air. Her eyes locked on the phone, wide and greedy. "You got a phone?" she gasped. "Daddy, Avery has a phone." I didn't even have time to hide it. Troy's footsteps shook the stairs. He didn't knock either. He barged in, lips already curling. "You think you get to have things we don't approve?" I tried to explain how I paid for it, how it cost them nothing, but he wasn't listening. He grabbed the phone out of my hand like it burned him, tossed it to Maddie, who squealed like she'd won a prize at the fair. He looked at me then, not like I was a daughter, like I was a thief. "You don't get to hoard luxury while we sacrifice for this house." Luxury, a prepaid phone I bought with dog poop money. I didn't cry, not in front of him, not with her clutching what was mine like she earned it. I just stood there, hands clenched, lips pressed into a line so tight it shook. That night, I told my English teacher. Mrs. Collins' kind eyes, quiet voice never interrupted. I told her about the phone, the screaming, the silence afterward. She nodded, didn't speak until I was done. Then she walked me to the principal's office. Mom was called in, I wasn't in the room, but I heard her voice through the door. When she walked out, she threw the phone at me. Literally, it hit the floor, slid across the tile. "Happy now?" she hissed. You just embarrassed your entire family over a stupid toy. You're nothing but a traitor. She didn't speak to me for 2 weeks, neither did Troy. Even Maddie seemed coached to ignore me, except when she wanted something, but I kept the phone. Cracked corner, data wiped, still mine. I'd tuck it under my pillow at night, fingers brushing its screen like it might whisper back. That night, I stopped hoping they'd change. That night, I started planning my escape. Not from a house, but from a family who'd already erased me. It wasn't the pinch that hurt. It was how long my mother let it happen. Eleanor Beckett, Troy's mother and self-declared queen of table manners, had bony fingers that struck like tongs. She'd reach across the table mid-sentence, grab my cheek like it was dough, and twist. Still slouching, I see, she'd hiss, too sweet for anyone else to notice. No wonder your posture's so unfortunate. I never flinched, not once, but I always looked at my mother, hoping she never looked back. One night, over baked ziti and Caesar salad, Eleanor leaned in closer. You know, she purred, patting my hand like I was a pet, a girl your age should start thinking about etiquette classes. Might still be salvageable. Everyone laughed. Troy, Maddie, even my mother. I laughed too, because the only other option was crying. The ziti made its rounds. Troy first, then Maddie, then Eleanor. When the dish reached my side of the table, my mother shifted it away without pause. I think we've run out, she said, smiling even though I could still see steam rising off the noodles. I stared at the empty plate in front of me. It stayed empty. The forks clinked. The wine poured. The night moved on. That weekend, I ended up at Tessa's, again. Stay for dinner, her mom said, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Lasagna tonight. We made extra. Their table was smaller, chipped in places, one leg propped on a folded magazine, but every dish made a full circle, no skipped hands, no missed eyes. Want to help set the table? Tessa asked, handing me a stack of mismatched napkins. I nodded, and something in my chest unknotted, not fixed, just less tight. When Tessa's little brother dropped his fork, no one yelled, no one rolled their eyes. Her mom just handed him another, kissed the top of his head, and kept passing the bread. I felt it then, the difference, the way warmth doesn't demand perfection, the way love doesn't skip people. That night, back at the Beckett house, I sat at the dinner table like a placeholder, a shadow in a chair. Eleanor made a comment about my limp ponytail. Troy barked at me for clearing dishes too slowly. Maddie announced she'd be performing in a school recital and asked who would attend. Of course we'll be there, my mom said, beaming. No one asked if I had anything coming up. I didn't bother saying I did. The dish passed. It skipped me. Again. I didn't reach for it. I didn't look up. I just stared at the empty plate in front of me and smiled. I wasn't part of their table, but one day I'd own the whole restaurant. When you've been ignored long enough, even a job offer feels like a rescue mission. I was 17 when Lydia slapped me. 1 second, I was telling them I got into state on a full ride. The next, I was standing at the top of the stairs, cheek burning, backpack half zipped, stuffing my entire life into canvas and panic. They didn't stop me. Not even when the door closed. Not even when it locked. It was raining. Of course it was raining. Because poetic cruelty loves a good cliché. I didn't call anyone, except Tessa. She opened the door in socks and a hoodie, eyes wide, mouth saying nothing, arms pulling me in before I could break. We didn't talk. She didn't ask. She just made tea and let me sit at the kitchen table, dripping and shaking and pretending I was fine. The next morning, her aunt came in. Dolores Ricci. Dolly to the world. Broad shoulders, hair in a tight braid, apron already dusted in flour. She took one look at me and said, "Need a job?" I blinked. She kept going. "Got a studio above the restaurant. Leaky faucet, peeling paint. Quiet though. You want it, it's yours. Rent's cheap. Comes with dinner shifts and a punch clock." It wasn't charity. It was a transaction. A lifeline disguised as labor. I nodded. Said yes, and that was the first time in years someone gave me something without taking me apart first. The studio was the size of a supply closet. No stove, one window, creaky floorboards, but it had a lock, and a bed, and a hook for my bag. I hung my blazer there, the one I'd worn to every scholarship interview. Still smelled like nervous sweat and borrowed perfume. The restaurant was called La Trattoria Ricci, a stubborn corner place with checkered tablecloths, dusty light fixtures, and a regular named Sal who always wanted extra olives. Dolly ran it like a war veteran, no yelling, just precision. You watch how people send food back, she told me once. You track the patterns, you learn the cracks. I learned fast, faster than they expected. How to balance 3 plates on one arm, how to fake a smile without grinding my teeth, how to split a check, quiet a Karen, swap out a burnt creme brulee in under 90 seconds. I started saving again. Tips went into a coffee can behind the fridge. First month, $212. Second, $418. On Sundays, I'd stay late, reprinting menus and reorganizing the back storage. Dolly didn't ask me to. She just started leaving the restaurant keys on the hook by the espresso machine. By month 4, she handed me the manager's login. Didn't say anything. Just nodded once and walked away. I stood there holding that password card, hands shaking like the first time I touched that stolen phone. I used to serve leftovers. Now I served strategy, and I was just getting started. Madison's name was printed in gold. Mine was printed on the lease. The engagement announcement dropped on a Thursday. Front page of the local society column. Madison Beckett and Blake Hanley to celebrate at the iconic skylight room above Ricci's. I nearly spilled my espresso. Tessa just stared, then she laughed. Once, sharp. They booked it, she said. They really booked it. The skylight room sat above our main dining floor. Private bar, glass ceiling, panoramic skyline. We'd renovated it last spring. New chandeliers, acoustic tiles, blackout curtains for late-night bookings. It wasn't just beautiful, it was exclusive, and it belonged to us. They didn't know. Of course they didn't. In their world, I'd disappeared at 17. No updates, no questions. They didn't know my full name was on the ownership docs. Didn't know I'd bought out Dolly's final shares 6 months ago. I checked the reservation file. There it was. Submitted by Eleanor Beckett Events. Requested date March 14th. Guest count 50. Menu selection: duck confit, truffle risotto, lemon mousse tower. Name on the bride line: Madison R. Beckett. For a second, just one, I considered declining. Rejection stamp, delete file, quiet exit. But I didn't. I opened the event portal, confirmed the booking, clicked print. The form slid out of the office printer, edges still warm. I signed it at the bottom in blue ink. Avery Quinn, managing partner. And just like that, I RSVP'd to their downfall. Tessa raised an eyebrow when I handed it to her. You sure? Completely. She nodded, stapled the file, slid it into the red binder we used for private events. We spent the next 2 months preparing. Not just the menu. Everything. Staff training, lighting cues, emergency plans, sound system reprogrammed to auto-record in case of disruption. Cameras updated to catch audio. I ordered new plates. White porcelain with black trim, elegant, expensive, but tough enough to survive a tantrum. The week before the event, I walked the skylight room alone, set the lighting levels, tested the mic, straightened the framed reviews on the wall. One quote caught my eye, etched in brass near the corner bar. Elegance is best served by those who've survived the fire. I touched it, let my fingers rest on the words for just a second too long. Then I turned out the lights, locked the door, and walked downstairs. Tessa was waiting, already reviewing the guest list. Duck confit, she muttered. Fancy. I smiled. They ordered the duck confit. I prepared the receipts. The gift I brought wasn't wrapped, but it was going to ruin someone's night. The skylight room buzzed with soft jazz, expensive perfume, and fake compliments. White orchids on every table, menu cards embossed with gold foil, centerpieces that probably cost more than my first rent. I stood at the back, still as glass. Blazer buttoned, name tag clipped to my lapel. Avery Quinn, managing partner. Same blazer I wore my first night on the floor. The seams were tighter now. The girl inside it wasn't. Guests filtered in slowly. Laughter rose like steam, the kind that fogs up a room but never warms it. Maddie made her entrance 30 minutes late. Of course she did, dressed like a chandelier, holding her fiancé's hand like she owned both him and the view. She twirled once, cameras flashed. Eleanor arrived next, hair sprayed into combat position, barking orders before she even crossed the threshold. "Table 3 needs to be moved," she snapped to one of our hosts. She didn't recognize me, not yet. Troy followed, red-faced already, tie crooked, shoulders hunched like a man preparing for war no one else knew he started. Then Lydia, hair curled, eyes sharp. She saw me, looked straight through me. Perfect. Tessa met me near the bar, a silver tray in her hands. "Ready?" she whispered. I nodded. She slid a small black USB drive onto the tray, tucked neatly beside a napkin roll. "Audio's clean, cameras synced, backup saved on cloud." I glanced down at the sealed leather folder under the bar ledge. Inside, the service clause, signed and notarized. Section 3.2. Any abuse, verbal, physical, emotional, toward staff or owners is grounds for immediate expulsion. No refund. I placed the folder under table 1, center of the room, within arm's reach, right beneath the wine bucket. They toasted, they laughed, they called out for more champagne, extra forks, someone to adjust the AC. No one noticed me, not until Maddie turned mid-toast and her eyes locked on my name tag. Her smile faltered. 1 beat, 2. Then she turned back around, laughed louder than before. I stood taller, calmer, because when you're underestimated, you're invisible. And invisible is the best place to strike from. Troy snapped first. Of course it was him. Someone had forgotten the mustard for his duck. He slammed his napkin down, stood, scanned the room, and when he spotted me near the bar, his face lit up like gasoline catching flame. "You!" he barked. "You think you can just show up here, pretend to—" He grabbed a plate, full, heavy, and hurled it across the room. It shattered against my shoulder, ricocheting off the edge of the counter. Salad hit the floor. So did blood. Mine. No one moved, not yet. When Troy hurled the plate, it wasn't just food that hit the floor. It was the last thread holding my silence. My mother called me the waitress, so I handed her the bill. Blood trickled down my cheek, warm and slow. The room froze. One fork midair, one gasp caught in someone's throat. Troy stood there, chest heaving, empty plate still rattling on the floor. He smiled like he'd won something, like he was still the biggest voice in the room. Then Lydia spoke. Of course she did. "Some people just don't know how to behave," she said, eyes locked on me, voice soaked in false elegance. "She's always been dramatic." Maddie laughed, high-pitched, ugly. "She'll do anything for attention, always has." I didn't speak, not yet. Instead, I wiped the blood from my jaw with the edge of my sleeve, the same sleeve that held my name tag, still clipped, still gold, now stained red. Tessa stepped forward, calm as steel. She placed the silver tray gently on table 1. On it, the black USB and the sealed leather folder. She cleared her throat, didn't raise her voice. "According to our service agreement, section 3.2. She turned to the guests. "Any physical or verbal abuse toward staff or owners results in immediate termination of service. Without refund, a beat. 2. Eyes shifted, mouths parted. Someone whispered, "Owners?" Tessa smiled, then pointed at me. "You're speaking to Avery Quinn, co-owner of this restaurant." And 3 more across the city. Silence, not shocked silence, shattered silence. I stepped forward, picked up the folder, opened it slowly. My signature stared back at me, sharp, clean, legal. Maddie's fiancé stood, confused. "Wait, you own this place?" I looked at him, then at Maddie, then back at Troy. "I built it from the ground up," I said quietly, "while you were all busy laughing at a girl with a cracked phone and bruised cheeks." Lydia stepped forward. "You planned this?" Her voice cracked for the first time in my memory. "No," I said. "This wasn't a plan. This was a consequence." I turned to security. "Clear the room, all 50 guests, now." The staff moved like clockwork. Tablecloths lifted, plates gathered, champagne corks recorked mid-toast. Eleanor shrieked, Maddie shouted, Troy lunged, but two guards were faster. One stood between us, the other called the police. No yelling, no begging, just execution. And just like that, every seat at their perfect table disappeared. The camera didn't lie. It zoomed in and recorded every bruise they ever denied. I uploaded the footage the next morning. No edits, no captions, just one sentence. Here's what actually happened. It took exactly 27 minutes to explode. Troy's face, drunk, snarling, full of heat and humiliation, froze mid-frame as the plate left his hand. The sound? Crystal clear. The crack of porcelain, the sharp gasp from guests, the dull thud of impact. My voice steady. Clear the room. By noon, it was on Reddit. By 4 p.m., Twitter. By 6, it had a hashtag. Pasta privilege, pasta lady. Zaasha, she owns the building. People clipped the scene where Eleanor clutched her plate like a trophy. Mine! She shrieked, tomato sauce flying into her pearls. Someone slowed it down, added opera music, uploaded it with the caption, "The Pasta Lady's Final Stand." It hit 1 million views in 8 hours. Then the phone calls started. A PR rep from Troy's firm asking if we'd be willing to clarify what happened. A local news station offering airtime. A blogger from New York wanting a quote for a piece titled, "How the Waitress Got the Last Word." I didn't answer any of them, but I did sit back and watch as every lie they built unraveled in real time. Lydia posted first, some long, passive-aggressive essay on Facebook. Our family was targeted. That girl has always been resentful. She twisted everything. Within 5 minutes, my footage was in the comments. 15 different people posted it, along with screenshots, receipts, old photos, testimonials. Sarah chimed in next. Avery ruined the happiest night of my life. That one didn't age well either. Turns out, guests from the party had filmed their own clips, side angles, audio from the next table. One shot captured Troy's spit flying as he screamed. Another showed Eleanor tossing her purse at a waiter trying to remove her plate. Miguel's calm face in the background? Iconic. Someone looped it with the phrase, "I fear no sauce." By day 2, Eleanor was a meme. Her face photoshopped onto Mona Lisa's, political figures, pasta boxes. The restaurant's page was flooded. 5-star reviews from people who'd never even visited. Just happy I stood up to them. Business doubled, then tripled. We added a wait list. I had to hire more staff, reprint the dessert menus, order new uniforms. Tessa watched it all unfold, shaking her head. "You didn't just serve them," she said. "You fed the internet." I didn't smile, not yet, because it wasn't joy I felt, it was release. Like unclenching a fist I didn't realize I'd been holding for 10 years, and somewhere in the chaos, their silence finally matched the years they stole from me. The only RSVP Maddie got was from the venue, saying her wedding was canceled. No apology, no explanation. Just one word in bold letters stamped across the top of the contract: void. Turns out, luxury venues don't like viral videos involving blood, threats, and flying duck confit. Especially not when the bride's family is trending under number Pasta Lady Meltdown. The caterer dropped out first, then the florist, then the string quartet Maddie bragged about at every brunch. Troy was demoted by Tuesday. Internal review, conduct unbecoming, company statement full of buzzwords like indefinite leave and incompatible values. He kept his job title, but they moved his desk to a supply room. Lydia's inner circle turned fast. The tennis club revoked her event access. Half her friends stopped answering her calls. The other half sent her links to articles titled Mother of the Groomzilla. She called me 3 times. I didn't pick up. She emailed, "Let's talk. Privately, this has gotten out of hand." It hadn't. It was finally in the right hands. I never responded, but I did send Maddie something, an envelope. Cream-colored, heavy stock. Inside, the cancellation notice, a printout of the venue's statement, and a copy of her own RSVP card. Gold lettering now stamped in red. On top of it all, a sticky note, lined neon yellow, written in my handwriting, 5 words. You should have tipped the waitress. Tessa saw it before I sealed the envelope. She raised her eyebrows. That's cold. I smiled. That's earned. She didn't argue, just passed me the stamp. Later that night, I watched the sun bleed down over the city skyline. Lights flickered on across buildings I once thought were unreachable. I thought about the girl I used to be, the one who counted tip money in the dark, the one who walked out of a house where her name was an afterthought. They never expected me to make it. They expected me to disappear, fade, fold. Instead, I became the line they couldn't cross, the voice they couldn't silence, the name they'd have to explain. I didn't just close the door. I rewrote the guest list. Forgiveness isn't the final chapter, ownership is. The morning crowd had thinned, espresso machines quiet, napkins folded sharp. I walked the floor like I always did, fingers brushing tabletops, straightening forks by instinct. Sunlight streamed through the front windows, catching the brass plate above the host stand. La Trattoria Ricci establishment reimagined Tessa's idea. She was in the office, printing lease papers for our third location. Downtown this time. Twice the space, 4 times the rent, and fully ours. I paused near the bar, same spot where Troy hurled that plate. The floor had been replaced since, but the memory never left. Not as a wound, just a record. A receipt. Behind the bar, we'd hung photos over the years. Milestones, faces, birthdays, press write-ups, but there was always one empty space. Center wall, just above the wine shelf, reserved. Today we filled it. Tessa stepped beside me, holding the frame, wooden, warm, a photo from our 5-year anniversary. Me, her, Miguel, the kitchen team, even Sal from table 3 holding a cannoli like a trophy. We hung it together, no speech, just silence, the good kind. I glanced down at my wrist, no bruises, no cuts, only the glint of the silver bracelet Dolly gave me before she retired. Tiny charm in the shape of a key. I keep her old drawer locked now, second from the bottom. Inside, my original name tag, still stained from that night. Not displayed, not erased, just remembered. Tessa turned to me. So, she said, playful smile in her voice. Think they ever figured it out? Who? I asked, knowing exactly who. She shrugged. Your mother, Maddie, the plate thrower, all of them. I shook my head. They never knew what I was building, too busy trying to tear me down. Outside, 2 college girls posed for a selfie under our awning. One wore a hoodie that read, "Tip your waitress, especially if she owns the place." Tessa laughed. I'll never get tired of those. I smiled, letting it linger this time. Not because I needed to prove anything, but because I didn't. Legacy isn't loud. It's not born in applause or headlines. It's built in hours, in scars, in silent mornings where you just keep showing up. And sometimes it's framed on a wall, right above the wine shelf. Legacy doesn't need their last name. It just needs a name worth remembering. Sometimes healing doesn't look like forgiveness. It looks like building something so steady, so undeniably yours, that no one can touch it again. People will ask you to let go, to move on, to be the bigger person. But often, those are the voices that never asked how deep the cut went in the first place. They weren't there for the silences. They didn't witness the small humiliations, the glances that erased you, or the dinners where your name was passed over like a dish no one wanted. So maybe it's not about going back and fixing what broke. Maybe it's about stepping forward and building something with the hands they tried to keep empty. There is a quiet kind of power in choosing yourself without needing permission, in drawing a line and saying, I don't live there anymore, not in their version of you, not in their approval, not in their story, because legacy isn't what they give you, it's what you claim. And sometimes the most honest thing you can do is hang your name on a wall and keep walking. Past the apologies that never came, past the praise you no longer need, and into a life that holds your full weight. Some names aren't passed down. They're carved, one earned inch at a time, into the doors we finally walk through. Thank you for staying with me through this story. If any part of it echoed something you've lived, whether it was the silence, the slow erasure, or the quiet rebuilding, just know you're not alone. You're seen. If this story stirred something in you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Whether it's your own experience or simply how this made you feel, your voice matters here. And if you'd like more stories that honor the strength it takes to walk away, to stand tall, to reclaim your name in a world that tried to write you out, feel free to like, share, or subscribe. Only if it feels right. Until next time, be gentle with your past and fierce with your future.